This afternoon, I wanted to take a moment to introduce Bill Livermore, who is the Executive Director of Together1heart Foundation. And I met Bill about, 6-9 months ago, and was so moved about some of the things that he was presenting and the foundation that he has so dedicated his life to helping. And just a little bit about Bill before he comes up here. This is someone who has worked really tirelessly for more than 12 years in fighting against human trafficking. And all of us feel very gratified in well, I do, helping companies and watching them grow and all of that. There's nothing really more gratifying, though, than giving back and making a difference when you find a cause where attention and money really needs to be applied. Bill has worked with the UN Division on Organized Crime on their 2011 report. He's worked in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Mexico, UAE, and the US on behalf of victims. If many of you are unaware of the degree to which human trafficking is still occurring in the world, it's shocking. It's really shocking. It's disturbing. I'm happy to volunteer some of my time, and I was pleased that my firm was happy to work on a pro bono basis for Together1heart, and now I'm also proud to serve on its board. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Bill Livermore. I think you'll be impressed.
We're going to hold that video for a minute. I'll let you know when we're going to play it. Thank you, though. In all fairness, I'm one of the culprits that came in today and said, oh, I have media and I forgot to give it to you yesterday. So, but I do have something I want to show you in a few minutes. I'd like to thank Andrea and Shepard Mullen for allowing us to have this platform, and especially NIBA. You've been through pitches all morning. I promise you that this is an issue that is difficult to see a tie between this and your work in investment banking and entrepreneurship, but I promise you that halfway through it you'll see where that intersection is, where both industries and both interests lie, and in the solution. But first, let me give you kind of an overview of what we're looking at on a global level. There are currently 27 million slaves in the world today. 60 to 80,000 in the U.S., according to State Department. 80% are women, 50% are children. In the United States, the average age that a woman enters prostitution is 13 years old. The life expectancy of that child is 7 years. In Michigan last year, we worked with the FBI on a bust where 87 children were rescued. Their average age was 15. The youngest was 3 months. And I want to be really clear about what our definition is here. I'm talking about real slavery, not being in a bad marriage, feeling that you're locked in a job that you're being underpaid for, and you have commitments that you can't get out of it. No, I'm talking about a job that people can't walk away from. People are forced to work without pay. People are operating 24/7 under a threat of violence and have no pay. It's slavery exactly the same way that slavery would be recognized throughout human history. Now, how did we get to this point? How did we get to 27 million slaves in the world in 2018? That's double the number of slaves during the entire transatlantic slave trade. Well, there's a couple of reasons, and these are not causal, they're actual supporting factors. One is the population explosion. We've gone from 2 billion people to 50 billion in the last 50 years. Add to that an increase in the vulnerability of large numbers of people into the developing world caused by civil wars, ethnic conflicts, kleptocratic governments, disease, you name it. We understand how that works. In some countries, all of those things have happened at once. For example, Libya a few years ago, and just recently we saw video images of a slave market taking place in public in Tripoli just 6 months ago, reviewed on CNN. About 1 billion people live on the edge, live in situations where they don't have an opportunity and are usually destitute. But even that doesn't make a slave. What makes a slave is the absence of the rule of law. If the rule of law is sound in a society, then it protects the poor and it protects the vulnerable. But if corruption creeps in, if you can use violence and you can use it with impunity, you can reach out and harvest the vulnerable into slavery. Now that kind of slavery is pretty much what slavery has always been through history. But there's one particularly remarkable and novel trait today, and that's the complete collapse of the price of a human being. In the past, human beings were capital expense. Over the last 4,000 years, we've measured what the cost of a slave was in an economy, and it was roughly $40,000. That's a capital outlay of significance. Today, the average price of a slave is about $90. They're more expensive in places like the US and Europe. Costs here are between $3,000 and $8,000. But I could take you to places in Cambodia or Mexico or Guatemala where a human being can be acquired for $30 to $50. The key here is that people have ceased to be a capital purchase item, and they become like styrofoam cups. You acquire them, you use them, you throw them away. Now, everything is not, things have gotten better in the 12 years that I've been working on the issue. It's hard to believe, but in Cambodia, we've seen the government begin to take an active role in combating human trafficking. They've created an anti-human trafficking task force that monitors and responds to reports of trafficking. 12 years ago, this was impossible as members of the government were involved themselves in the trafficking. In the United States, I've served on the task force here in New York City. I've served on the White House task force. Their task force in Michigan, in Texas, Florida, nearly every state has them. And I'd like to think that that's because of our outreach to judges and prosecutors to talk about the fact that underage prostitution is not prostitution, but it is the exploitation of a child. Now, not all that change has been great. We're now seeing younger and younger children being abused. Just a month and a half ago, our team in Cambodia rescued a 22-month-old. I don't know if you've ever had a daydream. Well, I wonder what it would be like to meet Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass. But I have to really say one of the most exciting parts of my job is I get to work with Harriet's and Frederick's on a daily basis. And I want to take a moment to introduce you via video to one of my heroes. Her name is Sina Van, and if we can play that. Sina works with us in Cambodia. It's a short video.
When I stepped into Cambodia, my childhood ended, and the dark side of my life started.
Sina Van thought she was going on a vacation trip from Vietnam to Cambodia. Instead, she was betrayed, drugged, and sold into sex slavery. She was just 13 years old.
There was a demand for me to service 20 to 30 customers if it's on the weekend. I was sick and shaking, but I had to service customers. The brothel owner threatened, if I don't go into the room, I will be killed.
Sina Sina says the memories are a hurt that cannot be healed, locked in a secret chamber of her heart. She was tortured inside these rooms at this now abandoned brothel.
To put it plainly, I was just like a little bird in their hands. If I didn't service customers, I would be locked in the dungeon. They would tie my hands and feet. I was naked and the mosquitoes were swarming around me. They would splash water over me and shock me. I was electrocuted. When I was shocked, I felt like my spirit just left me.
The nightmare lasted more than 2 years before she was rescued. Now, most days and nights, Sina chooses to walk back into her nightmare. She has to. She has dedicated her life to helping others trapped in brothels. This hidden camera footage shows Sina in action with her team from the Somali Mom Foundation. Posing as a health worker, she provides condoms and advice while looking for women to rescue. Away from the brothels, Sina helps slavery survivors rebuild their lives.
You are not children, so I want you to stand firm. I'm very happy that you take up responsibility. You are not weak anymore, and you persevere in your work. So now you can become a model for others.
They learn work skills in shelters and training centers. Sina is their magnet of hope, proof of what's possible in life. At the rescue shelter, Sina helps survivors build self-esteem. They trust her. She knows what they've endured.
Only the victims know what their real needs are. The first step is to show them compassion. They need warmth and love because they lack love and warmth in their life.
Sina has a third-grade education, but she's catching up. She wanted to become a school teacher, but now her life's calling is teaching the world that slavery can be beaten.
My childhood dream has been destroyed. There is only hurt and revenge. But my hurt has become strength for me to help others to not fall victim like me. And I will take what you give me, your love, your mercy, and give it to others.
So that video was done for Sina back in 2009 when she won the Douglas Award from Free the Slaves, a sister organization of ours. Since then, Sina is now our country director for our new business programs. And this is where our tie-in begins to come back to why I felt it was so important to take advantage of the opportunity that Andrea and NIBA presented to us today. We know that there are two solutions to this. The first solution is our programs are survivor-based. At every step of the way, when a new victim is rescued and brought into our program, they are guided by survivors. I don't want to get into the details of all of that. I'm happy to talk about it later, but it's very important that each victim knows that they're not alone and that there's a survivor to mentor them as they go through the programs. Our programs go from the medical triage upon arrival to trauma treatment and psychological care, onto education and then vocational training, and now we're getting into the area where I think that this ties really nicely with you, and that's in microloans and starting new businesses. In the last 12 years since I've been involved, we have over 500 businesses have been started and are running in Cambodia by survivors of human trafficking. 500 successful businesses. These are funded primarily through microfinance loans. Our microfinance repay rate is 97%. How would you like to loan money out and know that 97% of the time it was going to be paid back? That's what we're working with. In addition to our microloans and our vocational skills, we have had 5 survivors graduate from university. 2/3 of our staff are now survivors. We have 4 in university this year, 2 entering in January. Economic empowerment of women, giving women access to capital in developing countries, is really one of, I believe, the most powerful solutions to ending trafficking. When developing countries, when communities begin to understand that women have economic value, that they can be a revenue stream to a household, they are less likely to be trafficked. And we know that from an experiment we ran in Pai Lin, which is in northwestern Cambodia. We did a program training young girls that had not yet been trafficked but were at risk of it in some sector-appropriate vocational skills, and we saw trafficking in that region drop by 30% in just 8 months. So we know that if we're able to provide loans, if we're able to get capital, small amounts of capital to women in these areas, that we can have an incredible impact on human trafficking. And it's not just Cambodia, it's also Mexico, Guatemala, Sierra Leone, Liberia, any place that we can get women access to the capital markets where they don't have them, we can see, and a strong established rule of law, we can see a real difference. And so this has not been a pitch for money from you. Yes, we do take donations very gratefully, but more of a pitch for your intellectual power. We need mentors to help our young businessmen, businesswomen in how they establish their entrepreneurial goals. We need advice on how to expand our microfinance programs. So without that intellectual property power that you bring to us, we'll never be able to completely eradicate slavery in our lifetime. So thank you for all of you who stayed. I will be out front for the remainder of the afternoon if you have any questions. I'm happy to chat with you, but I greatly appreciate you giving us this platform to talk to you.